Lace them up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Trip. 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 We're digging in with Trip today, yeah.
Well, hello there. For those of you watching on YouTube and listening on all audio platforms, welcome to another edition of Digging In. This is going to be an exciting one. Momentarily, we're going to dig in with Hall of Famer, my dear friend Marty St. Louis. Wow. You want to talk about a guy that we might not even get him for this episode because he might be busy digging his way to Beijing. That's how much of a shovel he had on all fronts throughout his career. We're going to be able to do so thanks to our presenting sponsor, our longtime loyal sponsor, the New Country Auto Group. NewCountry.com, with dealerships spanning from all the way up in New York to Florida, with Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Maryland, in between. Extensive automotive elite manufacturers from BMW to Maserati to Ferrari to Mercedes. That's where I got my car from, and the Mercedes of West Palm Beach. They check every box: family owned, family run, family qualities, built on one-on-one customer service in every facet of what an automotive car dealer should be. NewCountry.com. Before we get to the great Marty St. Louis, there's, for those of you watching on YouTube, that's his very famous yellow stick right behind me. He always told his teammates, just look for the yellow stick, I'll do the rest. I encourage you to rate and review our show on all audio platforms as well as YouTube, and continue to look at our ever-expanding merchandise line at digintrip.com. Some very exciting new zip hoodies that I actually am all fired up about. It's ever expanding, and if you have any suggestions when you communicate how we can add some more merch that will be met with great satisfaction, let us know. So without further ado, let us now dig in with a guy that played about 5 feet taller than he was, a former Vermont Catamount, first ballot Hall of Famer, the great Marty St. Louis.
Well, this is particularly special. I had no clue when I first saw him in the ECAC with Eric Perrin and Timmy Thomas, who dug in a little while back, that I'd become such a dear friend of, well, I don't want to speak for him, but for me, become so friendly, and we will be for the rest of our lives with Marty St. Louis. So that's why this is particularly special. Stanley Cup champion, Hall of Famer, Marty, baby. I start every show. Nobody has gone deeper with his shovel than you. How do you define digging in?
Well, for me, digging in is really getting uncomfortable. You know, when you push yourself to limits, that's uncomfortable. And I don't think what are the limits? You know, what are your own? I think everybody has different definition of hard work. What is hard work? It's different for everyone. But I know for me, when it gets physically uncomfortable, I'm digging in.
We're going to go right back to the beginning outside of Montreal, partner. But I got to pull this out. The old yellow. Okay, and boy, were you kind to me. For those watching on YouTube, to Trip, best southpaw I ever played against. Yeah, right. Good friend Marty St. Louis. I got you right next to Timmy Thomas. By the way, where did the yellow come from?
You know, in 2003, Easton had come out with, I think, yellow and orange. And I was using the silver synergy the year before. And a couple of years before, maybe it was in 2003, I believe, that they came out with the yellow stick. And anyway, the first time I used the yellow stick that year, I scored 33, went to the All-Star game. And actually, it was my first playoff experience. We played against the Capitals. Yeah. And my game totally went to another level. And we only played 11 playoff games, but it was my first playoff experience. And my game went to a whole other level. playing in the playoff, and I carried that into the next year, and that was 04, the next year. But for me, the yellow stuck because I felt like that was the year that I kind of took off in the NHL, and I just didn't want to change anything. And it became a struggle later in my career to keep the yellow, and I ended up switching to Warrior because Easton wasn't going to make it anymore. But which was probably a good thing for me to get away from that stick, because the technology was evolving so much, and I had to get used to play with a whippier stick and use the technology. And Warrior were kind enough to paint him yellow for me.
Well, you used to tell your line mates and teammates, just find that yellow stick. Quickly on this, a former dig-in guest and a Harvard guy, Alex the Killer Killorn, he said when he first broke into the league, and you mentored him beautifully, but he said he would yell to you on the ice. And you said to him, you said, Killer, don't say anything. Then the guys we're playing against, they know where you are. I know where you are. Tell me about that. Anti-communication.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's time to communicate, but it can't be all the time, because if it's all the time, you're pressuring. And there's, I mean, I see it at the young age right now. I'm coaching, and sometimes kids are yelling for the puck and they're not even open. And it confuses the guy who actually has to make decisions, so just be selective when you're going to yell and when you're going to demand it. If I have my back turned and this was a split second play, and you want me to, for an area pass, whatever. But like, if it's constantly yelling for it, like you draw coverage to yourself. So the best player, they just hide, they just kind of hide in in the game that doesn't have much room to hide. It's all about, figuring out which way, how much momentum the opponents have and which way their toe caps are facing and that kind of thing. And those guys, the best player, they're able to just navigate through that and hide and really get open better than others. And I find that if you're, like I said, there is time to yell for the puck, but it can't be all the time. And and Killer, Killer he's had a tremendous career, and I'm not surprised. He's always been a worker and a guy that really works at his game and absorbed really well. Because I remember when him and Palat and Johnson came. That was the year that Stammer got hurt. So I ended up playing with Palat and Johnson a lot. But I played with Vinny and Killer too. And I'm, to me, like, chemistry is be able to predict where your teammate most likely going to be, so you can play a little faster. And in order to do that, you have to have conversation. You have to have feedback. Like, you do a little video and like, okay, what's your thought here? I need to understand what you're thinking. I gotta know how you process the game, so I can. So you can help me find you more. And Killer was very receptive. Same with Pally and Johnny. But that's actually a part of the game that I really enjoy working at is understanding your line mates and the guys you play with.
You mentioned what an informative answer. I'd expect nothing less from you, partner. But you're coaching your three boys. You're all in, digging in like you always do. So kids, and they're great young men. Let's go back to you. Laval's about 50, 55 minutes outside of Montreal. I spent some time with your dad and your wonderful mom, God rest her soul, trying to hone my French in elevators in Tampa when I had a French girlfriend, and they laughed at my French. But was your dad one of 14 kids? Am I right on that? Am I prep?
No, you're right. My dad's one of 14. Grew up on a wood mill. My grandfather had a wood mill, started working very young. I think when they turned 8, they were able to go work at the wood mill. And, 3 hours north of Montreal in the sticks. But I grew up in Laval, which Laval is actually just north of Montreal. Montreal's an island, Laval's an island. You cross the bridge north, you're in Laval. from Montreal, and I lived on the south shore part of the west part of Laval. And no, I mean, my dad's one of 14, 13 boys, one girl. Like I remember like the big family gathering. Usually it was around Christmas and New Year's. We'd drive up to where he was from. That's where his mom and dad had retired and kind of lived up there. But a lot of the families lived around there too, and we would all. And anybody who was in the Montreal area would always drive up there through the holidays, and there was some big gathering. I mean, I feel like every year I would meet like cousins that I'd never met before, second cousin or whatever. It was they had to rent a ballroom or it's actually a really small town, and they had to rent this community center room for those events because it was too big of a family, and my grandmother, I mean, she died. I think she was 86. And so I remember like, going up to visit them. And I mean, and my dad would tell me story about her, cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they had a farm and, and back then she had a stove, a wood stove, and when she finally got an electric stove, she burned a lot of her food. So for a month she kept using the wood burning stove until she got used to the temperature because the wood burning, it's kind of a feel, right?
Yeah. Oh God. It's like you get used to a new stick.
I know. So it was funny. Like she was, she cooked like all day long when I was there, like, and never complained about anything. And can you imagine doing the laundry with that size of family? My dad says she didn't go to bed on Monday nights. Monday night she did laundry. She didn't go to sleep Monday night. She'd wake up Monday morning and she wouldn't go back to bed till Tuesday night for the laundry. Yeah. No, I mean, you talk about, I feel what my dad has passed on to me, if where do you get your work ethic? And, I feel like, I think he got it passed down to him based, and I think hearing the story of what what my grandparents went through and what he'd gone through and started working at 8 and stuff. I don't know. I think you just you dig in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think at a young age, I was very influenced with people that kind of dug in their whole life. And I think I just inherited that.
And I know your amazing mom, you guys were on a budget and, and I want to say she'd go to the grocery store every Thursday. And you've spoken so much about her, show them, Marty. What were her wonderful attributes that you hope are part of your DNA and bloodstream?
Yeah, my mom was probably the kindest human I've ever met, and I'm not saying that because she was my mom. Like my dad was a great dad, loving but tough. My dad was strict, and not that my mom was not strict, but she was just kind to everybody. Like if she had a bad day, you didn't know. She's never moody or anything, and listen, we weren't poor. My mom was a factory worker. My dad was a postman. And my dad worked on the side too with this, as a carpenter because he grew up in that. But, they lived paycheck to paycheck because they spent everything they had, on me and my sister,
mm-hmm.
and all the activities. I mean, we did everything. I played hockey. We did gymnastics, soccer, karate. I mean, if I wanted to do something, I was doing it. But we didn't go on many family vacation because of it, because the budget was just for the activities. But, my mom did grocery shopping on Thursday. They got paid Thursday. And she went grocery shopping. And when she got home, we went to Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was like all pizza buffet. Like every Thursday night, we went to Pizza Hut. I mean, I was having
breadsticks.
We were really treating ourselves. And, but the lunches for Friday were awesome, and the Monday lunch were decent if you didn't go through everything on the weekend. Tuesday is not too bad. Wednesday, Thursday was pretty tough. And my mom would literally because they gave each other an allowance for the week, and my mom and dad, that was part of their budget, but she'd give me her last, $5 on Thursday to go get stuff at the canteen at school. Right. And then she would only have crackers and a slice of cheese for lunch. That was my mom. She'd give you her last dollar, if it could help, if you could help me. So she was a great lady. And, I think the biggest thing with her is, because she always, even if she had a bad day, you never knew. There was never any problem. There was always answers. There was always, ways to solve anything, and for me, as a kid loving the game, and, there was plenty of disappointment in my young career, and, getting cut from team. And it was never like, oh, those guys, they don't know, they're talking about this, and there's never complaining, like I got screwed or this and that. And it was like, don't worry, Marty, you're going to show them, So I kind of built a mentality of just like fighting through adversity. And my parents were never upset or if I had to struggle a little bit, and just earn whatever you get. And I think it really shaped me at a young age to stay confident and believe in myself and dig in. And, things usually, come around.
Yeah, I went back and watched last night your Hall of Fame induction speech, and it ages like a fine wine. It just gets better. It started out terrific, and it gets better every time, partner. Your sister, she was smiling. I mean, she might have needed a plastic surgeon in the audience to remove her smile. Tell me about your sister, because I didn't achieve the same things, obviously, in the National Hockey League that you did, but I had a sister that supported me. Tell me about your sister and her role in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, she spent a lot of time in the rinks. She was a gymnast, and that's how I started doing gymnastic, because I used to go pick her up after practice, and I'd have to wait like an hour. So I used to mess around on the, on the bars and this and that. And they asked me if I want to join. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But, I'm going to miss this and this, but I'll come when I can. And actually it was the best thing for me. Mm-hmm. But my sister was a big part of that. And, she at a young age, she was my first goalie. I put her in net and she would really get me going when I couldn't score. She'd make fun of me. And, she was a great athlete. But I mean, I think a lot of, she spent a lot of weekends in the rinks and just following what we were doing. But I left at 17, and I never lived back there since then, so we really had to, especially now, it's much easier now with the technology, but, for a long time, it was really hard to communicate. I was busy starting my career, but it's been nice to with everything you can do now with the obviously these Zoom calls and FaceTime and stuff. And I actually have a lake house up in Quebec now that in the summer we go and we're able to visit. So no, she's been a big part of my life.
Did when you left to go to Vermont, and I know you had a ton of big time NCAA suitors, Vermont was close. I've never asked you this. I certainly recognized you on your first shift, that first time we played, because you probably found the back of the net. But did you, you talk about communication, Marty. Was your English, were you truly bilingual when you got to Vermont, or was that still a work in progress?
No, it was definitely a work in progress. I didn't speak great English. I spoke so bad in English that I took a French 1 class pretending that English was my first language. And I couldn't speak English. The French teacher said, Martin Saint-Louis, and I'm like, ear.
Oh, legendary Catamount moment.
And I got Eric Perrin in my class, who's he's a bit better in English than me, because he actually lived in Regina, Saskatchewan, until he was 10. So he had an English background. I wasn't very good. I could communicate, but it's another thing to actually like write stuff. And so it was hard, but I have Eric to my right, and now we're going around this is in French. We're going around the class and we have to each have to read a paragraph. And I told him, hey, if you want to stay in this class, like, you got to pretend that you don't speak good French. So he's reading, and he's reading so good. I'm hitting him. I'm like, you're gonna blow us up. then it's my turn, and I stop on every word, pretend like I can't speak. Oh my gosh! Anything to help the GPA. Average.
What did you get? What grade did you get?
I got a B.
Oh man, couple of things. Boy, I could stay on Vermont forever, but I want to keep this thing moving along. Mike Gilligan, what a heck of a coach! Tell me about why he was a special influencer in your career.
Gilly taught me a lot about being humble and how you treat people. I don't know if there's one person that doesn't like Mike Gilligan, and that says a lot, and. Like you get on campus at 18, like you still have a lot to learn as a young man. And, Gilly taught me a lot about life and how to treat people and the respect. And it really helped me to, don't fall in love with myself and don't think you're better than anybody else. And, you're just good at hockey, and there's more than life than hockey. And he was a great mentor that way, and, we had, Roger Grillo, who was the assistant coach, and Roger was more like the X's and O guy. And he was a young guy. He was real hungry. And I still talk to Roger almost every day. He's a good friend of mine. It was a great mix with him and Gilly. And couldn't ask for a better staff, especially at that age. And, that part of my young career. I felt I really developed, not just as a hockey player, but as a human. And I owe that, especially to Gilly.
Did you, and again, we've been friends for a long time, and I saw you on the ice. I obviously wasn't seeing you and reading you good enough, but you were number 8 there, and it's retired. It's in the rafters. Why number 8 at Vermont?
26 was taken by a sophomore, Matty Johnson.
Oh, Matt Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. So, when he left after his senior year, I was going to be a senior. I wasn't going to change my number. I had been number 8, and things had gone pretty well. And it was my soccer number. I wore 8 in soccer, and I just took it.
Okay. Now the big moment. Again, you talked about it in your tremendous Hall of Fame induction speech. Describe the moment. It probably wasn't in that introductory French class. When did you meet your future wife, Heather?
I met Heather in college. I mean, she was an acquaintance, probably sophomore year. I didn't go to the bar as much my freshman year, more like fraternities and house parties. But my sophomore year, we'd venture downtown a little bit, downtown Burlington, and I would definitely see her out with some of her friends. We had like mutual friends, but I didn't really know her. But between my junior and senior year, I would stay in the summer and just train at the university. And she actually she took summer classes. So the summer scene is a lot calmer. There's a lot less people downtown. So that's how I ended up meeting her, just because there was a much smaller crowd, and we knew we had mutual friends, and we just bumped into each other. And the next thing you know, we just started hanging out and been together since '96. So married since 2000.
3 tremendous boys. And I'm guessing that you had honed your English by the time you made that first impression. Either that or she found your broken English charming.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both.
So, again, sticking with the theme of of digging in, of course. Now my gosh, you're year in, year out, All-American. You're going deep in the NCAA tournament. You stay and complete your 4 years. You could have left after your third year, and then nobody signs you, and you end up going to Cleveland in the International Hockey League. Tell me about that. I don't know that you had to learn anything about yourself. You've always had that gusto, but how you persevered through it had to be disappointing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think I'm happy I didn't leave and got my education, but I felt like 4 years in that league was a bit too long for me, especially with everything I had done. And my senior year, I got more penalties than points. I think I had 65 PIMs and 61 points. And my junior year, I had 85 points. So every game you play, there's people all over me, and the game was a little bit barbaric then. Like it wasn't as much as wide open as it is now, where if people were locking you down, they could really, and if the refs weren't protecting you, it was really hard to manage that my senior year. And I got frustrated a lot, and I probably took bad penalties, and it probably hurt me signing a contract, maybe because some of my actions on the ice. But I didn't know that then, like I look back on it and I can kind of make sense with that angle. But going to the IHL, like it was just, to me, it was just the next step. Like I didn't think that I was going to be, in the NHL right away. I probably going to have to probably have to dig in and work myself up. But I went to Ottawa's training camp, and I did well, like in the scrimmages and stuff. I didn't get an exhibition game, but like I thought I deserved one, because in the scrimmages, I thought I was good, and I wasn't intimidated by the level of play. But I went to Cleveland, and when I went to Cleveland, like the IHL was an older league. Like a lot of guys were coming from the NHL, either finishing, or some of them were on loan or whatever. I mean, I had Pat Jablonski as my goalie. I played with Jim Peck. I played with Rob Pearson, Brett Harkins. Like these are all guys that play in the NHL. And so now I was playing with them, and I felt I could play with them, and it gave me a lot of confidence. Like, wow, those guys play in the NHL, and I'm here doing what I'm doing. I can play in the NHL. So once, it's a slow progression, but mentally I know that I can do this. I just got to keep going, and Brad Lauer, who's actually coaching now, I believe he's still coaching, but Lau was on my team. Lau was a funny guy, and he got hurt maybe a month into the season. I think it was Lau that got hurt, but I got moved up to Brett Harkins' line, and Brett was a great playmaker. Eric, obviously I played with Eric my whole life, and Eric was a great playmaker too, but we were young guys. And Brett was just, I think, was like 30 years old maybe, and he could pass the puck and he could score. So I just ended up racking a lot of points, and I think, I caught people's attention because of it. I went to the All-Star game and scored 3 goals in the All-Star game, and the next day I signed with Calgary. It was a hard moment because I left Cleveland. I left Eric, and that was tough.
It's okay. So you go to Cal. By the way, you're bringing up memories, because during my only shot of double espresso in the NHL, Pat Jablonski was my partner. Oh man. So you go to Calgary. When we played against each other in college, I always thought of you as a two-way player. I've really never talked to you about it. You started playing with Theo Fleury, and then you're in the lineup, you're out of the lineup, you're in St. John producing. But you point to that difficult stretch as making you a more complete player because you had to learn other roles. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, in college, I wouldn't say I was a great defensive player, but I know I had the puck a lot. And I guess being on offense is you're going to be good defensively if you're on offense because they can't score when you have the puck. So I never really focused so much on on the defensive part of thing. But my first 2 games in Calgary were in Japan in '98. They were promoting the Nagano Olympics, and I was on the line with Theo Fleury and Andrew Castles, and they both had 6 points, I think 5 or 6 points that weekend, and I had nothing. And I was like, "What? How do I have nothing? How does I have to pick up a couple second assists or something?" I had a couple chances, did score. I was a little bit intimidated by the NHL. I was almost like putting those guys on a pedestal, and because physically and skill and that, I was ready. Mentally, I wasn't. I needed a couple, being knocked down maybe and come back up, being knocked down. I need a couple of those to get to get through. But I would go to St. John and be the best player there, and I would come up and play third, fourth line, and it's a funny story. Because my first camp at Calgary, because I had signed with Calgary the year before, midway through the season. I finished a year in St. John. We went to the Calder Cup final. We lost against Philly. The whole staff was watching us because Calgary was not in the playoff. I led the team in scoring throughout that playoff stretch. It really set me up to make that team out of camp. And I made that team out of camp the following year. And I get sent down like a month in, and I go down, I get called up, I go down, I get a concussion. I only played 50 games. I had 60-something points in the minors, and I led the team in scoring with only playing 50 games. And the following year, I go to camp, and I'm one of the first cuts. They cut me. So a week, I don't even get a game. No, maybe I got one game. I can't remember. Anyway, it was quick. And I remember Brian Sutter was in the office, and he had me, Jeff Cowan, and Sergei Varlamov, I believe. And at the same time, he cut us at the same time. He says, "All right, you guys are going down. All right, have anything to say?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And I says, "Do you mind if these guys leave?" So Jeff and Sergei leave, and I said, "I don't understand." I said, "Last year, these guys voted me the MVP of that team. All my American League teammate, they thought I was the best player there. And I'm first cut." So, and he doesn't really know what to say. I kind of put him on his. I said, "I tell you what," I said, "I hope you guys don't call me up this year. I want a full season in the American League. I want to lead the league in scoring, and I'm going to." Columbus and Minnesota was coming in, right? When did Columbus? Yeah, Columbus and Minnesota in 2000, right? That's when they came.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the GM gets a whiff that I'm upset. Nick, Al Coates and Nick, and I go up to their office upstairs and I talk to them. And I tell them the same thing: "Don't call me up. I'm going to go lead the league in scoring. I want a full season." Like I was, I was okay not playing in the NHL for a full year and just really digging in and get after it. And I go down there after 15 games, I got 15 goals, 26 points. I'm leading the league in scoring, and they call me up. So I go up there. It's kind of funny, but I go up there, and now I'm playing on the third line, and I'm not playing power play. I'm killing penalties. And when your job is to kill penalties and to play against the team's top 2 lines sometime, like your role change, your mind change. It's not the same game. It's a lot different than going to the rink trying to get 1-on-1, or go in the rink and trying to keep the puck out of your net. It's a big difference mentally. So I learned to kill penalties, and I learned to check. And when I was in my prime as an offensive guy, I still killed penalty. That 1 year, I led the league in shorthanded goals. And I would be on the ice at the end of the game, whether we were down a goal or up a goal. And that was great. Like, I don't think I would have been that if I didn't go through that, because I ended up playing, 56 games that year in Calgary. And I stayed the rest. They called me up after the 15 games of mine. I stayed the rest of the way, but really, really attacked a part of my game that I never knew was important, and it was great for my development. And I love Brian, Al, Nick Polano. Like, those guys were great, and unfortunately everybody got fired after that year. And that's how I ended up in Tampa. Like, nobody could, vouch for a 5'8" defensive forward who had 3 goals and 2 in 1 game in 56 games.
Yeah, it's because I'm not even going to bring up Craig Budden, because I'm sure that he probably still can't sleep thinking about it. Let's focus on just getting to Tampa. I was on the horn this morning with the guy that brought you there, Rick. I call him 007 Dudley. He was at a diner in Lewiston outside of Buffalo. And, he dug in and he went to bat for you. He told me, he said, Trip, I knew his skill made him, without question, an NHL player, and certainly compensated for the fact that he was 5'8". He said, what I didn't know is that his will was going to make him a superstar. He said he knew you were an NHL player, but he didn't have a full appreciation for your will that was going to make you a superstar. Talk a little bit about how you selected Tampa and Rick Dudley, who I happen to have a particular admiration for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had different options, but I felt like Tampa was probably the worst team of the bunch, and I felt like I could crack that lineup. Mm-hmm. So other teams were more established teams with deeper lineup that I thought, I'd be just a depth guy. And I was looking through that lineup of the Lightning, and it just felt like almost like an American League lineup. And I'm like, perfect, because in the American League I've put points my whole life. So I'm just going to go to camp. I'm going to pretend I'm in the American League. And I go to camp, and in the scrimmages, I'm just lighting it up. Like, I'm playing really well. But then the exhibition games start, and I'm on the fourth line.
Oh no! Here we go again.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I not get? Did I not score enough goal in the scrimmages? And I test well. Like, I always took care of my, the physical stuff. And anyway, so I could see like the writings on the wall. It's like, I'm sure like when, you go through training camp, but they already have you slotted in certain things, and that was frustrating for me. And the season started, I was on the fourth line. I played a minute 51. It's funny, actually. I got.
What do you have, the game sheet?
Yeah, I keep the game sheet here. Minute 41.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, those of you watching on YouTube, there it is.
141.
You focused on quality, not quantity that night.
Yeah.
Who was on your line?
Steve Martins.
Oh, my teammate.
Yeah. 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 So the first, 15, 20 games, I'm in and out of the lineup, play very limited, and I finally go up to Steve Ludzig, and I'm like, Ludzig, I just want you to know I can play on your top 3 lines and help your team, and I don't care what you do from there, but I want you to know that I think that. And he said, okay. And he didn't give it to me right away, but something switched for me because I've always been, I had enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had enough of. I always feel like if you settle for crap, you get crap. You know. So I had enough, and I just changed my thinking. I always took care of the team, but the team was not taking care of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take care of myself. So I changed the way I was playing a little bit. You know, I used to chip a lot of pucks in, and they want to turn the puck over, and it was. I mean, it's a much different game now. Like, people are encouraged to make play. Like, we weren't that encouraged to make play. It was a mentality of try not to lose. So I remember I scored my first goal shorthanded. I think it was the 20th game of the season. It was my first goal, and so the first 20 game I had maybe 2 points, and the next 20 games I had 15 points, and I would start the game on the fourth line, but work my way up to the second and third line. And then at practice, I'd be back in the yellow jersey on the fourth line. And the game start, we weren't winning many games. I'd work my way up the lineup. And I finally asked Torts, who was the assistant coach, I said, Torts, why do I always show up at practice as a fourth line player when, I finished the games on the second line? Like, he's like, let me see what I can do. I think I think Torts appreciated my work ethic and the way I dealt with things. Like, I wasn't a rah-rah guy, like I'm getting screwed. I felt like I was earning opportunities and deserved better. And I was, looking for help. Need somebody to, to give me, to put me on that pedestal a little bit where I felt some of the players were. Torch took over halfway through the year when Leslie got fired, and I ended up scoring 18 that year, and really was in 60 games because I didn't really play the first 20 games. So I felt in my mind that I was a 20 goal scorer, like I was like, all right, I'm a 20 goal scorer. Like, this is good. And before I left in my exit meeting, Torch told me, hey, if you take care of yourself this summer, I'm going to give you a chance in the top 6 next year. And that's the first time that a coach was telling me, I think you can play, and I think you can play in the top 6. Like, I think you're a good player. And that just like fueled me. Like, I finally had somebody at that level that could really help my outcome, was telling me that he's going to do that for me. I just got to take care of myself. So I went to work, not that I wasn't going to work, but now I felt like I was really working for something. And I had, I had Brad Richards and Vinny LeCavalier at center. So I didn't know who I was going to play with, but I was going to play with one of those 2 guys, which, they were very good hockey player. So, I came back the next year, and that's when I kind of took off, but that year in 02, I broke my fibula in January and missed the rest of the year. And, but they still signed me to a 2-year deal after that. And it was definitely gradual for me, Trip. But once I got the opportunity, I just ran with it and never looked back.
Yeah.
And it was just this, I felt like I just became like I was creating almost a monster that just was just getting stronger and stronger. And there was nobody was going to get my way at that point.
And I'd say, because for the first, 15, 20 minutes of this episode, because I remember when I was in the minors, I'm a couple of years older than you, but I remember the song was popular by Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. And I used to listen to it all the time. Anyway, now we're past that. Okay. You finally, because you keep getting back up, you keep digging in. Torts told me this morning, continuing his outstanding career, and I hope at some point he lands himself in the Hall of Fame where you are already. He said, Trip, Marty, and you could feel it was a text. You could feel his passion even through the text. He said, I'm surprised he didn't swear because he's not afraid to. And he said, Trip, Marty Hart, way bigger than the size of the building. Tell me about John Tortorella. You've already touched on it, but why he meant so much to you.
Well, I grew up with a dad that was firm, strict, but also loving. And there's plenty of time like I didn't really enjoy some of the discipline that my dad did. But, you know, he, as a father, he's not there to be your friend when you're, you know, we'll be friends later, you know, and Torts was kind of like that. And I was used to that. You know, he pushed us physically. Like he wanted, and you know, he made us realize how hard you have to work to win in this league, and not just work physically, work mentally as well. You know, but Torts played the hell out of his stars. You know, if you met him halfway with your work ethic, he played you a lot, which it was great for me to, you know, to reach the level I did. I wouldn't have got that without that ice time, you know, like, I mean, and me and Torts, we had battles, you know, we battled and we apologized and we moved on, and, you know, but we both wanted to win, you know, and I was surrounded with guys that wanted to reach excellence. But that takes work, you know, the Richards, the LeCavalier, the Modine, obviously Torts. When you're surrounded with guys that want the same thing as you do and put the time, it's special, you know, and I owe a lot to Torts because of that, you know. But if, you know, Torts would challenge me, but there's plenty of times I challenged him, you know, like, you want more from me? Well, this is what I want. You know, it's like, okay. Like Torts would give you an opportunity to shove it up his ass.
What was the story? And you mentioned what you said to Brian Sutter back in Calgary. Was it in Ottawa where, you know, he talked about, and he was pointing to you and Vinny and Brad about being difference makers, and you had the ball, game breakers, and you had the balls to go up and say, okay, this is what needs to happen. What was that conversation?
Yeah, so we walked. He was all over us a little bit, and rightfully so. Like, we weren't playing our best, but sometimes you need, you know, to me, there's plenty of way to play 20 minutes. The quality ice time, like, I don't know, like, I mean, in today's game with the TV timeout, it's like offensive zone draw. Like, if your top two line's not out there after TV timeout, it's a crime to me. You know, so towards the meeting was about his game breaker, we're just not doing enough. You know, so I'm like, all right. So we walk out of the room and I just follow him, and I'm like, Torts, can I talk to you? Sure. I said, you want us to be a game breaker? So yeah. So well, then give me game breaking minutes. Okay, offensive zone draw. Like, when I'm fresh, like, give me the game breaking minutes. I said, okay, you got it. So the next game we're in Montreal, and I'm just fired up. I know I'm going to get a ton of ice time. I go 2-2, first star. So you know, now you're just creating that communication of, like, that hunger and like, you know what, like, yeah, you want this, then you better give me that, you know. And I think Torts like that. I like when I get challenged, but Torts would challenge you, but he'd give you the opportunity to shove it up his ass. Like, he wasn't just challenging you and then, like, you know, making it look like an uphill battle just to get the result that he's looking for, you know. So, I mean, I would sit at the end of the bench always in that chair because the bench were too tall. I felt like I could recover so much faster sitting in the shorter chair than your feet. I can't rest if my feet are dangling. Yeah. So Torts would look at me, like, Torts would be behind the bench. So he'd look at me and he'd be like, "You're good?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know, like, and I would go back. Like, it was just, yeah, it was fun. Like, you know, when I was in that zone, there's nothing better than being in the zone and be rolling as a player. Like, you just feel like the game is so clear. Your reads are just impeccable. Your execution, the swag. It's just, you know, there's nothing better than being in that zone. And Torts helped me to get in that zone.
This is great stuff. Do you now eventually, you end up winning the Hart Trophy. You're voted as league MVP by your fellow players, which has to be the supreme of supreme compliments. And you win the Stanley Cup. And the team that you couldn't really get nowhere near a real chance with. You score the huge goal to extend the series in overtime in Calgary. And then you win in 7. If you had to pick one moment, Marty, consistent with the show, when your team had to dig in the most, where it could have gone the other way, the other less desired route at the fork in the road, what would it have been?
Game 6. Like if you watch the video of the Lightning Stanley Cup video, we lose game 5, and there's a scene in the video. I'm talking to Dave, still in my equipment, Dave Andrechuk, in the locker room. And I'm still in my gear. I think Dave has already changed. You walk away from game 5, you get in that dressing room, that tunnel. The one thing that comes in my mind is like, okay, this guy's been playing for 20 years. He hasn't won a cup. And we're one loss away from this dream being shattered. And who knows if he's going to have another chance, right? Because when you're young and you're there, you feel you're going to have other opportunity, which you don't really. But I went up to Dave, and they kind of showed in the video. I said, Dave, we'll be back here. We'll be back here for game 7. Because I knew he was probably, hurting a little bit. But we dug in. We dug in game 6. We played a smart game. Again, this was the old rule. It was very, it was war zone, a lot of hooking, holding, not much room. I scored in, I think, double overtime. It was my first shot on net. There was no room. The shots were like 18, 19, I think, something like that. Scoring that goal and having a chance to come back home with momentum I was definitely, playing for myself and my family but having the opportunity to see a 40-year-old that's played 1,500 games, that scored 600 goals, that never hosted the cup, having the opportunity to be part of that and seeing him do that, it was pretty cool.
And jumping around just a tad, a Hall of Famer that he is, he presents you with your Hall of Fame plaque. You used to ride to the games with him, superstitions, you make no bones about it. You're a superstitious cat. Tell me about the friend, Dave Andrechuk, beyond the fact that he was your captain, and everything that he encompasses is, because I know that he had to hurry up and get ready so he could hit the exact time that you needed to go to the rink when things were grooving.
Well, Dave was the best. Listen, I know Dave had to wait a long time to get in the Hall of Fame. For me, when we traded for Dave was a Hall of Fame from then. I'd watch him play, for so many years when I was a teenager, even younger than that. To have the chance to have this guy that had been around for so long be in my dressing room, be on the plane, be on the bus, be on the bench. When he came in, I literally was following Dave everywhere because I want to hear everything that came out of his mouth. And I was asking him questions about anybody, and he was patient and he always had, the answer. And he was obviously he was a fun guy to be around. He played, in the old school, and, we'd land and I know Dave was going to hit happy hour, and he grabbed the boys, and that was fun. Our group, I truly believe that 04 group was close, was because of, Dave, way of doing things is contagious. It's contagious. He just brought everybody together all the time. The boys were having fun. And, I just playing cards, whatever. Dave was the best. The golf, You know, we still, I mean, I go back to Tampa. I have a house there, and I go visit every now and then and holidays. And I just played golf with Dave. And Freddie Moe has a place too up there. So we meet up there and we get playing golf. It's the same, making fun of each other. And, but, you know, Dave was always, I looked up to him like a big brother, you know, like, and he was special. He taught me a lot about the game and again, how to treat people. Like, you know, he's a special guy.
One quick tangent, but I've got to ask this question. So after you guys win the cup, Chris Dingman came here, and he lived actually in the same apartment complex with his wife, Chelsea. And he used to say to me, because we'd go to the Irish pub, and he'd get going. He's a storyteller. And he'd say, Trip, don't ever try to go beer for beer with Dave Andreychuk. This were Dinger's words. He said, Andreychuk can drink 25 beers, and it's like nothing. Is this true? Does the Hall of Famer have a hollow leg?
I don't know about 25, but I wouldn't go beer for beer with Dave either.
Oh, I love it. One other guy who was actually born the exact same day, same year, December 20th, 1973 as me. One of your Stanley Cup champion teammates, Corey Stillman. He's coaching in Arizona now. And Stiller rarely gives out a compliment to anybody. And he told me last night, he said, Marty, what a hockey player. And I said, why, Stiller? He said, because he checked every box to get to the hard areas. You're coaching now from your playing career. What are the ingredients you have to get to the hard areas and have success?
Well, I mean, competing is one of the most important thing in hockey is the compete level. But also, you know, to me, it's the timing and the space awareness. You know, going to the hard area is one thing, but how about getting there at the right time?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you get there too early, you're probably going to be in coverage by the time your guy is loose with space to make a play. So there's timing about getting there. Like I used to love tipping pucks, but I didn't really stand in front of the net. I just timed it and I flew by and tipped it. Mm-hmm. Then I was on the move I could recover puck because I was on the move. I was never like engaged so much, you know, and I wasn't shying away for physical play, but I like to be on the move. So I didn't want to initiate battles in front of the net because I wouldn't be able to recover pucks in the corner. So, you know, the hard areas is you got to get to them, you know, but it's the timing of it and when you get there and what you do when you're there. The compete level is probably the most important thing because I feel by the time you get to the NHL, everybody around you is a pretty good player. You know, it's going to who competes the hardest and who thinks it better.
Before we move on to the New York Ranger portion of your career, one more question, and this comes from the killer Killorn. He said, I asked Marty about, and he says he can't confirm this, but he thinks that because when you had a long distance to the rink in Tampa, that you actually used to go early and take a bit of a nap in the training room. Is this true? Fill in the holes for me here, partner.
Yeah. Well, first of all, before we move on to that, Corey Stillman was a heck of a player too, by the way. And I got to play. Yes. I got to play with Stiller in Calgary. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I played with him in Tampa. He was an unbelievable playmaker. Could see everything. You know, He was fun to play with, like because he would make the best play 90% of the time. Yeah, not just a play. He makes the best play. That's what Corey was really good at because he wasn't incredibly fast, but he knew where the game was and where it was going, and he was not content just making a play. He was trying to make the best play 90% of the time, which he was fun to play with.
Do you, by the way, Marty, do you know when you guys raised your banner, because we lost the lockout season, he was my bench interview, playing his first game as a Carolina Hurricane, raising the banner, part of your team. And he told me on the bench, this Carolina team's going to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Really?
And he went, yeah, Stiller. He lost all of his hair predicting the future. Anyways, now he's a wonderful hockey man like you. Thank you for saying that. He'll appreciate it. Now, killer in your pregame naps in the training room.
I got to charge one of my headphones. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so when Killer came, I had my 3 boys and they were all playing hockey. So on the days that on the weekend, a lot of time, the house would be empty. So I had no reason to go to the house, to take a nap. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to take my time. I like being at the rink. I was a rink rat. I mean, I played ping pong. I'd go on the ice after people had gone, I'd go back on the ice sometime, and I'd work on my sticks in the stick room, whatever. I'd joke with the trainers. I mean, the locker rooms in the NHL is like a country club. Like, it's beautiful, hit the sauna, steamer, whatever. There's tons of food, big screen TV. Like, who does not want to spend more time there? But in the back room, there was a cot, like a little bed that you can roll out, So sometimes I would just sleep at the rink. I'd take my pregame nap at the rink. And the first time I did it, there was a big compressor in the back there. So I'm sleeping and the compressors start and it woke me up. So I learned I had to shut the compressor when I go take naps. Some of the trainers sometime would use it. I was there I think Torts used that bed when he coached in Tampa because he'd have long hours at the rink, I guess. That's what Ray Thill was our equipment guy used to tell me. But if nobody was home, I wasn't going back home. I was just going to stay at the rink. Yeah, Killer's right.
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Man, you're so humble. So you won't let this go to your head. I'm going to have to bring you back for another episode because I'm just scratching the surface things I want to get into. So this is just going to be part 1 and we'll do it again, but let's get to the Ranger element. Let's start with a lighthearted question. Spoke with a former dig-in guest, Mark Stahl, and said that he used to drive your bus and get in your kitchen and one-touch soccer. What's the story with that?
Not a chance. Yeah. But we definitely love playing that game before. And we definitely, Stahl's a competitor, so am I. And it's funny. We just to give it to each other. Yeah, Mark was a lot of fun to play with.
And now to get incredibly deep, when you had your big run with the Rangers, you're down 3-1 against Pittsburgh and you lost your mom. It's everything to you suddenly. And he told me, you're down 3-1, but there was just an emotional low for the team that you could not really describe appropriately and powerfully enough in words. And that you walked in the locker room for Game 5. And it was one of the most incredible feelings that he's had in his NHL career. And everybody knew that you guys were going to win. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't care going into details, but we were landing. I was playing cards. We were landing in Pittsburgh, and we weren't just about to touch the ground. We were still in the air. Like I want to say, I don't know, 1,500 feet, maybe 500 feet. And my phone rang, which never happens. I know every now and then, like your phone, before you're about to land, it starts buzzing because the texts are coming in. Well, my phone actually rang and it was my dad. And I'm like, why is he calling me? He knows I'm traveling. So I picked up and he couldn't really talk. He just told me my mom had passed. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, what? And I couldn't really hear him. So let me call you back. I'm landing. So I hung up the phone and now I'm standing up and we're about to land, but I'm not, it doesn't hit me yet. Then I go see, Rammer, Jim Ramsey, our medical guy. And once I told him, I said, Rammer, my mom just died. When I said those words, I lost it and I couldn't stop crying. Now nobody knows why I'm crying. You know, it was really, so, you know, the plane lands and everybody finds out. You know, the Rangers were awesome. Like everybody got off the plane. We flew back, and then they got my family. We went out of Teterboro, got a private plane to Montreal, and I could see I saw my mom before they took her away. I got there on time. They were holding her, and, you know, said my piece, and went home, talked to my dad, and, you know, it was like probably like 2 a.m. at that point, and they had kept the plane there in Montreal. They weren't sure, but they're going to keep it overnight. They weren't sure if I was coming or not, and I asked my dad, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Your mom would want you to play, so go play." So I'm like, "All right." So the next day, I was the first guy at the rink. I think it was like 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock by the time I got there. And I was kind of numb. Like, I mean, through the playoff, I was very numb, you know, but, you know, I knew it was hard on me, but the hockey helped my whole family cope with the situation. I know it was hard on my teammates just to be around me because they felt so sad for me. But, you know, when the players start rolling in, everybody, you know, hugged me one at a time. And I just told them, let's just get after it, boys. And I knew we'd win game 5. I just knew emotionally we would win game 5, you know, and it happened that game 6 was on Mother's Day. Yeah. So we had a lot of momentum and things on our side, just the emotion wise, you know, we were charged emotionally. I mean, that building on Mother's Day was unbelievable. You know, and I mean, obviously game 7 can go either way. We found a way. That was pretty special series to come back.
Then you beat the Montreal Canadiens, you know, being from suburban Montreal. And I was talking to Mark Stahl about this last night. He played a game for the Red Wings in Dallas. And I told him, like, I'm very close with Justin Williams, and he's very proud of Justin. Has so many of the same characteristics of you. I really thought that LA series could have gone either way, especially the first 2 games. Yeah. You guys hit a ton of posts. Do you agree? I mean, I know that people only remember the winner, but I really feel strongly.
Yeah, it's a 5-game series, but there's 3 overtime loss. You know, hey, they won it, but it was a lot closer than a 5-game series. You know, but the crazy part about Montreal too is, I was trying to plan my mom's funeral, and I was kind of waiting on the schedule. And Montreal was down 3-2 to Boston, and they came back and beat Boston in 7. So I was able to schedule the funeral. And obviously, if we were in Boston, my team probably wouldn't have been there. You know, couple teammates maybe, I don't know. But because it was in Montreal, my whole team was at my mom's funeral. And we planned it in between, you know, before game 1, I think. Yeah, before game 1. And, you know, I did the eulogy in French and English, you know, and my teammate, they got to know me pretty quick, right? Because I got traded there at the deadline. So they got to know me pretty quick because what I was going through. And I got to know them too. So we got a lot very close pretty quickly because of it. But the fact that they were there and upstairs in that church, it meant the world to me, you know. And we went and we beat Montreal in Montreal. Those 2 games, we played tremendous, you know. And we were just riding that, you know, that emotional charge that we've had, you know. Such a tragic moment, and we just emotionally were charged up to just make it right, you know. And that was great to be part of it, you know, scoring an overtime goal at NSG on game 4. Yeah, game 4. You know, it was a 2-1 series at that point. So we go 2-2 back to Montreal is different than going up there 3-1. But just scoring that goal at MSG against Montreal, obviously the team that I idolized growing up, it was special. Like the roof, I mean, it was so loud. It just, obviously I got traded from Tampa for a few first round picks. I felt like I was validating the move at that time, and there's a lot of pressure as a player. You get traded for not just Callahan, but a first round. Like you want to deliver, and I know we didn't win the cup. We came close, and even the next year we were the best team in the league regular season, and we lost the conference final to a very good Tampa team.
Yeah.
So in 7, but I'm glad that I got to experience something different than I was in Tampa for so long. I'm glad that I finished my career and got to do something different and get uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like and went the extra mile. You go way back to you defining what digging in means to you. You spoke about your teammates being able to be there in Montreal at your mom's funeral. I want to ask you about a teammate, and it speaks so much about you as a person, because I believe that your college teammate, here's his stick right next to yours, those watching on YouTube, Timmy Thomas. I believe that the Bruins beat you in the conference finals, and Timmy, a former dig-in guest, because they didn't win in Vancouver until Game 7. He said a phone call from you was pivotal from him in winning that Stanley Cup, the Conn Smythe. And he spoke so powerfully about it. Can you tell me about that phone call?
Yeah. I mean, they were down 3-2, right? They lost Game 5 in Vancouver. They came home. Yeah, I just I had gone through it. I remember Ray Bork called Tim Taylor for us. He had done the same thing with Colorado. It's just you really have to just go play one game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't think you have to win 2. You got to go play one game, and it's definitely doable. Pressure's on the other team. Pressure's not on you. Even if you win Game 6, pressure is still on the other team. And I wanted this for Timmy. I mean, I cried when I shook Timmy's hand when we lost in 7. Like I was disappointing, but I was happy I was losing to him. So as I know his struggle to get in the league and his path and where he was at that time, I was like, go get your cup, man. Like, and I was emotional about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad he did. And, the call, I was just trying to help a friend, let him know it's possible. Just think about one game. I'd gone through it, and it's been done before.
That's the very definition of what it's all about. I want to touch upon international hockey for just a minute or two, because you won a World Cup. You were a gold medalist, multiple-time Olympian. This, I've got it. I mean, you win the league MVP, a Stanley Cup, voted by the players as the league MVP. And now I believe you're playing on a line in the World Cup with Mario Lemieux. And did you toe pick with nervous energy?
I led the league in toe picks. It's probably Brad Richard who told you this. Yeah, every year I led the league in toe picks. I know. Yeah, I mean, there was 5 lines at camp, and our line was me, Richie, and Mario. And I couldn't believe I was playing with Mario. I couldn't believe when Mario came back in the league. I think it was in 2001, maybe. That I was going to get a chance to play against him. Because when I was in Calgary, he was retired.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry.
Yeah, get that earbud in.
So, the fact that I was playing against Mario was such an honor. And then now he's on my team. He's on my line. So I'm like, wow, I was so nervous. And we're just doing 3-man weave, and I can't put it on this tape. I'm just trying to it's the golfer who just try to steer the ball, like scared going to go out of bounds. But that's pretty much what I was. I mean, I was just missing every passes, and I'm like, Mario, just give me a couple of days, man. I'm so nervous. And he's like, kid, you're just the MVP. You'll be all right. So he calmed me down. He was a great guy. I remember we had first exhibition game was in Columbus. We were in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And first exhibition games in Columbus, and Mario still doesn't have insurance for his back yet. They're in the process. You have to get insurance. So our line's not playing. So after team dinner, Hitchcock says, that who's going and who's not going. I'm like, guys, so me and Richie are walking out of the dinner, and Mario say, hey, kids, meet in the lobby in 30 minutes. So we're like, okay. So we get in the elevator, and me and Richie like, what? We're going out with Mario? So we went, in Ottawa and around Ottawa, and we would have to after one beer, we'd go to another bar because everybody recognized Mario. And Mario was so nice. It was awesome. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, Marty.
And how about the time too? I played golf that trip with Mario. Mario's 4 under after 5 holes, and I'm a decent golfer, and I double the first 4 holes. I'm so nervous. He's wearing pants. He looks like Ernie Hells. He's got a nice swing. 4 under after 5, and I'm double bogeying everything. Yeah, Mario had me nervous, but he calmed me down after that night we went out together. It was good.
It usually works like that when you nestle. You mentioned with Andrechuk, I mean, nestling leads to good things. It may not be represented in analytics, but it does. In terms of paying it forward, you have 3 young hockey players. You and Heather, it's always been about family. In terms of being a coach and a parent, remembering the sensational parents that both your mom and dad were for you, if you were to give any advice to not just a parent of a hockey player, boy or girl, but of any aspiring athlete, because you're right in the trenches of it right now, what would you say?
Well, to me, I think as parents, we don't like to see our kids struggle, and in anything, especially in sports, but in life, to me, struggle is step 1 of growth. Okay. So if you don't struggle, it's going to be really hard to grow. So you have to have those moments, those setbacks. And then you find out about yourself. Who are you? Because it's easy to be the best version of yourself when everything is going well. Mm-hmm. What version of yourself are you on a bad day? What do you do when it's not going well? Who are you then? As a person, as an athlete, whatever. Who are you then? So to me, it's embrace struggle and get after it. And as parents, just stay away from when they do struggle. Be emotionally supportive, but don't try to solve their problems. Let them get after it and make things right for themselves.
Finally, one of the boxes, and it's not a sexy box, but one of the boxes you have to check if you're going to dig in, because you're going the extra mile. The game is for sale if you're willing to pay the price when no one's looking. You gave a terrific guy some praise in your Hall of Fame induction speech by the name of Ben Prentice, who has long been a trainer in Connecticut. Again, for kids, and then for National Hockey Leaguers that look up to you to this day, the Hall of Famer that you are. What would be the things that you would always stress to kids of all ages with regards to training when nobody's looking?
Yeah, to me, it's how hard are you willing to push yourself? I go back to the first, tell me what digging in is, what is hard work? What is hard work? It's always compared to something. You know, the one thing I was always scared is somebody was working harder than me somewhere. So you can outwork anyone from anywhere, as long as you're honest of actually what is your hard work definition. You know, and for me with Ben, every Friday we did lactic acid tolerance, you know, and sled, and, you know, pushing yourself to the limit, throwing up. Like I couldn't drive for at least 40 minutes after my workout because I felt like I was going to pass out, you know? So, you know, people say, oh, I left it out there today. Like I know what that means now, because I left it out there many times in that old gas station that Prentice had. It's not there anymore. He's got a much nicer facility now, but you know, every Friday there was a good chance I was leaving it out there, and I've experienced that. But because I experienced that, there was nothing harder. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I could recover from shifts very quickly. I was ready to go and go hard again, you know, and I owe that to the training. Mm-hmm. You know, and some of these crazy training camps, like that wasn't as hard as some of the things I was doing, you know, so I was prepared. And that's a big part of being successful, is being prepared. I was prepared for the competition. I was prepared for the season because I had left it out there and I had put my time in. I had dug in.
One bonus question I just have to ask you, because there's nobody that I would prefer more to ask this particular question to. They say, for those watching on YouTube, as I take a sip here, that resentment is like pouring poison down your own throat. The only person that it hurts is the person carrying the resentment. So how would you say the balancing act should work, my dear friend, between being motivated positively by a chip on your shoulder of somebody that said you can't do it, to simultaneously letting it go if it's negative, counterproductive energy?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. Like, people care what people think of them. So if people don't care as much, it's easy to just let it go. Like for me, I cared what people saw me like. I cared. So I had that, you know, I'll show you, you know, like, you think I'm this? Now I'll show you. I'm going to show you what I really am. I'm going to convince you that what I am, you know. And some people don't really care what they think of them. And to me, it definitely fueled my fire to try to prove people wrong. And sometimes it's not even like proving people wrong because they say things about me. It's proving people wrong because I can see where they're slotting me. You don't need words and communication to see when exhibition games start, you're on the fourth line. Nobody needs to tell me, hey, I see you as a fourth line guy. Like, there's no communication. I'm well aware of what's happening, you know, and that fueled me, like, you know. So yeah, there's moments in life that you know, strike a chord, and it's, you know, and that's why I say, like, who are you when it's not going well? Like when your back's against the wall and you're in the ropes, like, who are you? What are you going to do then? You're going to fold? You're going to quit? You're going to make excuses? Or you're just going to get after it? You know? So there's a choice. Every day you have a choice. Who are you going to be today?
Perfect. Fini. Martin, mon ami, je t'aime. Marty, my friend, I love you. Je t'aime toujours. I love you always. I love you always. I'm going to let you go. I think we may have to have part deux so we can dig in, because there were a bunch of things we didn't cover. But, who am I today? I can tell you, anybody can get through the good times. When I've had challenging times, because we all do in different facets of life, you're one of those guys. You always have been. You always will be. You show up and prove a friend in need is not a pest.
No.
So, tell you what, you have a great one. Thanks for this. And, boy, you've had an inspiring shovel. And I'll let you go. Off you go with your shovel.
Thanks, Trip. Thanks for having me. Actually, I listened to it's great. I was listening to the one with Eric Stahl this morning on my run. Yeah. So it makes your podcast makes the run go much faster. So keep at it.
I certainly will. Thanks for that. And Eric will appreciate that. And we'll talk to you, partner.
Well, thank you so much, Marty. That was unbelievable. Your competitive nature, your straight shooting nature, everything you do on the ice, off the ice, pre-NHL, post-NHL, being a fabulous father, great family, everything you've always done, including gratitude, perspective, has always been 1,000%. Very proud to call you a friend. It's that simple. And very proud to have called you a friend for a long, long period of time that will continue for the rest of both of our lives. So thank you so much to Hall of Famer Marty St. Louis. Thank you to the New Country Auto Group. As always, our tremendous presenting sponsor, dealerships in Connecticut, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, right on down to Florida, BMW, Maserati, an unbelievable new state-of-the-art dealership, Ferrari dealership in Naples, Florida. So if you've been saving up, if you've been good with your cash, hey, you hockey players and hockey management people, if you're ready to step into a Ferrari, New Country, they are the family-run automotive dealership group that you should go to, and their range is outstanding. I've always said that if you want a smart car, you want the Escape Pods from Star Wars, they've got you covered there too, newcountry.com. Please continue to rate and review our show on all audio platforms as well as YouTube. And continue to check out our ever-expanding merchandise line. Right now I'm wearing a visor that I probably will wear when Marty St. Louis and I go toe-to-toe on the golf course. I'm a visor guy on the golf course. Digintrip.com, some sweet new zip hoodies that have really garnered some solid attention. Until the next time, when you look in the mirror, are you digging in? Don't BS yourself. Tell the truth. If you aren't, never too late to start. And by the next time that I see you and you hear me, you better be digging in. Stay safe. Be happy. Happiness is just a decision. That's what Abraham Lincoln said. And we all know that he dug in. We'll talk to you soon.
We're digging in with Trip today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.